Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning to all. Welcome to the Saturday version of Time of Reflection. We are going to be picking up our lesson today in the book of Ecclesiastes, starting at chapter 7, the very first verse. We're going to back up to verse 10 and kind of 12 and kind of work our way into verse 1 of chapter 7. And we're going to look at today Solomon's counsel, a wise advice for living. And it's always good to take advice from someone that is living, that has lived a life over the years. I always say it is a pleasure and it's beneficial. And it is a pleasure to be able to know that you have been around someone that has spent some time through the years and has picked up some living experience, and they were able to pass on that experience to others. And the idea that we need to be able to set in wise counsel. And here we are looking at Solomon in his older years, and he's writing about the wise advice. It is always good to get advice from someone who have passed down the road that you're traveling. And we're all traveling the same road, because road that all each one of us travel will end up in the same place. Even though we don't think or believe that we will. Uh, I know when I was younger, I used to believe that I was going to live forever. And in the idea, but the wisdom came in and taught me the idea that we have a thing called mortality, and we have to understand that we all have a time and a place. So I want to thank y'all, everyone that's in the tuning in. Remember to be with us this afternoon at the Holy Cross Missionary Baptist Church at 949 55th Street for our state quartets musical. We will be starting at 2 o'clock or thereafter, and all is welcome to. And I want to ask everyone that's on my Facebook page and with that has a subscribe to, and with the American Gospel Singers, that to help us and come and support today. We have some we have some good singers coming in, and I have singers that said that they would be there, that would come and be with us today. So come join in with us and help us celebrate and build and listen to some good gospel singing. I'm trying to copy my link, but come join in with us and enjoy some of the great gospel singers of all time. And remember that we are working and striving to be better. I got waiting on a couple of people to come back that stepped out before we get started. But I look like I'm just going to have to go ahead and get started anyway, and go from there. So anyway, we're picking up wise advice. I am looking at the idea that um, I am striving to pick up some of the um, principles and pass those on. And anyone that's in my age range, or anyone that's within my voice, even ones that are not, we have to look and see how we can strive to help those that are under us in order to give them a direction to go in. And I know that we all have something that we can pass on to someone else. So picking up from the book of Ecclesiastics, and my group that normally is here today, some are not coming because we moved an hour earlier today in order to be able to do the things that we have scheduled for today, and also being devoted to this my teaching, my time of reflection class. I have set aside this time, and I will stick to it. But I just moved an hour earlier. So those of you that are looking on Facebook on the good, and all of a sudden you see my face, you know why. We had to move an hour earlier because of the program this afternoon. Okay, moving forward. Looking at the book of Ecclesiastes, the writing of Solomon, we're in chapter 7. Wise advice for living is the heading. But moving back to a little bit, then let's read right into that verse, into verse 1. He said, "For who knows what is good for man in this life? And all the days of his vain life, which he spent as a shadow." And so he's asking the question, for who knows what is good for man in his life? And all of us have fell into that category. We think we know what's good for us. I know when I was younger, I used to say nobody could tell me what to do because I know what's good for me. Well, I finally came to find out what everything that was good for you, what that was good to you, wasn't good for you. And Solomon and what he did was he experienced that all through his life because he had to try each and everything that came his way. And Solomon was, like we all said, no, Solomon was a ladies' man, and he tried everything that popped up in his way, came before him. So he tried everything to see. So we know, and he tried says what is good. He says for who knows. I used to tell him, I think my mom didn't know as much as I did about me, but she knew more than I gave her credit for. And she knows, but she knew what was good for me, and God knows what's good for you. So Solomon asked that question, and we should be asking that question to ourselves. But he goes on to follow up on that question. Said, "For who can tell a man what shall be after him under the sun?" And we have a hard time telling people what's coming next or what is next. So he asked that question, who knows? And now I ask you the question, who knows what's coming next? What is the answer? We should be looking to try to find the answer to that question. What comes should be after him? Who can tell a man what should be after him? under the sun. And it's a question that we should be looking at because you don't know what's coming after you. You don't know what's coming after you when you leave here. Because the Bible said we all should sleep. And I know when I went to sleep last night, I didn't know anything until I woke up this morning. So what happened between the time I fell asleep and the time I woke up, I don't have a clue. So we asked the question, who should know what comes after you? I have two people that should have been here. My grandson should have been back by now. Okay, we'll give him a few more minutes. So he asked that question, what should be after him under the sun? What should be? And we need to understand, none of us know. Solomon is starting to sort of the profound truth that we do not know what the future holds, but we know who holds the future. And that is one amazing thing that we should think about. None of us know who holds the future, but we all should know who knows the future and what the future holds. We plan, but our plans for the future is a hope for the future. I was planning my retirement, setting things aside for my retirement. And stock market and the housing thing dropped, which lost everything that I was setting aside for my future. So I didn't know what the future brought. And if I'd have known what the future brought, I wouldn't have did some of the things I did. So he's just laying out, Solomon's just laying out for us the truth that we don't know what the future holds. But we know who holds the future, but we do know one thing, who holds the future, our future in his hands. That's God Almighty. In the end, what is the radical question? That is a question that we should be thinking about. The answer to which that no human knows the future. So each day must be lived for his own value. Solomon is arguing against the notion that man can take charge of his own destiny. And that's amazing. I used to say all the time that I have control of my own destiny. I know what my future holds, so you cannot control my destiny. Came to find out different. And this is what I try to pass on to the young people around me. And this is what you should be trying to pass on to those around you also. That you don't hold your destiny in your hands. And Solomon argued against it. And I am just repeating what he was saying beforehand. What was that? Okay. Excuse me for a second. Somebody keeps sending me a message. Um, I don't know what it is. So anyway, so we understand that we don't hold out. What he's arguing against is with the idea, the concept that we hold our destiny in our hands. But he goes on into, we're going to move on into chapter 7 and the verse 1. And he's coming into the wise advice that he gives us. And this advice, one of the very first things he gives us is one thing that we should all lean to. And he said, a good name is better than precious ointment. And the day of death than the day that one is born. There's two parts to that. I'm going to speak for a minute. I really get this. Okay, continuing on. A good name is better than precious ointment. And my father used to tell me a lot when I was younger. And some of the older people that I was around when I was coming up down in Louisiana, used to stress the idea of keeping your word. And my father used to tell me, you're as good as your word. And he didn't only tell me that, but he showed it to me. How he would ask people something, they wouldn't even second guess, they would just give it to him. Because if he said that I'm going to give it back to you, that you would get it back, he made sure you would get it back. And when you spoke his name in the hometown, whether they was black or white, rich or poor, all of them respected the name. And the whole idea was he has stressed in us to always maintain or try to maintain your name. That's why throughout my life I would try to do what I say I was going to do. When Solomon is using precious, he said a good name is better than precious oil. Precious oil in Hebrew text may literally render good oil. In the ancient world, the abundance of oil was a sign of wealth. And a good name is better than that precious oil. A good name would carry you. A man of his word can carry himself farther than someone who have a bad name. I know all of us have ran across someone that we know that we don't trust. We still care for them, but we don't trust them. And we don't trust them because of the idea that they don't keep their word. I know we met people that have good intentions. They say they're going to do things. But having good intentions and keeping your word is almost two different things. All of us are intended to do so. We intended to do certain things. But we end up not being able to do it, or we don't do it. But there are those who don't even have the intentions of doing something because they when they first approach you with it, they don't have the intent of doing what they said they're going to do when they first said it. But Solomon's letting us know, as a good Christian, as a child of God, you have to keep your word. And the Bible tells us about making promises to God and not keeping them. Look that up. You'll find it. There is a scripture that tells you about making promises to God and not keeping that promise. I'm saying to God, because we have a habit of doing that, of being in trouble and promising God all these things, and He helps us out of this trouble, and we don't fulfill the promise that we made to Him. But the difference between God and us, He's willing to forgive you for those things. And I need to find out what's going on here. I need to make a phone call to know what's going on. So we understand that what he's saying here about a good name. But the word? Oh, okay. All right. So he lets us know a good name about it being a good name and keeping to your word, because keeping the promise of God. Because he goes and said the day of death than the day of one's birth. When he said good name is better than the day of death, than it is the day of your birth. And I look at that in different ways. When we think about, let's see, how can I put this? A good name is better than it is in the day of that. He's comparing it to the day of death, than the day of death and the day of birth. When down south they say is you should cry the day somebody was born, a child is born, and rejoice in the day in the day after they have been dead. The pain and the hurt and the disappointment and all the things that come along with life ends on the day that you return to God, and that is a better day because you're returning to for which you came. Than the day one is born, because it's only the beginning of all the things that we have to deal with over the time. So if we look at the concept where he's putting here, is he's comparing all of this to your good name, or to your name. And we can apply this old concept, because when you die, your name is, it's amazing how we go to people, how people talk about how wonderful certain people are. But nobody says anything bad to say about a person the day they die. I haven't been to a funeral yet where somebody got up in a 2-minute procession that they have and talk about how bad this person was or what they did in their life. Everybody gets something. They always have something good to say about the person that I was starting to wonder what had happened to you guys. I was starting to worry. Too long at the donut shop.
No, you just told me to know myself.
I didn't know. I didn't know that. So anyway, in verse 1 of chapter 7, finishing up verse 1. In the second part of verse 1, the day, a good name is better than precious oil, and the day of death than the day of one's birth. And the comment we're leaning on is the idea that he is talking about the day of death than the day of birth. And because a good name, everybody, I go to a funeral, like I said earlier, go to funerals, and I've yet to go to a funeral where somebody get up and have something bad to say about the person dead. Everybody has something good to say about it. Nobody has nothing bad to say about it. But the idea, the concept here is that he said it's better than the day of death, a good name, than it is for the day of birth. And like I said, down in Louisiana, they always said you always mourn. We shouldn't mourn a child when it's born and celebrate the ones who died. And they celebrate too. They dance all in New Orleans, they dance all the way to the cemetery, dance all the way back. Because it's celebration. But a good name would carry you farther than anything else. And he's comparing it to, and Solomon's comparing it to death and birth. Because he always said it's a sign, like precious oil is a sign of wealth in the Hebrew. A good name is a sign of wealth, is a sign of wealth. Because my father, like I said earlier, my dad always stressed the concept of having a good name. And me having a good name, here's where having a good name is doing what you say. And being able to stand up when you have made a mistake and say, I'm sorry. Or if you want to borrow something from somebody, at least go back to them and tell them I can't give it back to you. If you can't give it back, the time you say we go back and say I can't do it. But it's the whole concept of being a man of your word. And that's what he's stressed. So a good name is precious. So it's all we should strive to try to understand what it is. He said it is, he goes on in verse 2, it is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting. You know, I read that and I wonder what is he talking about here. You see, the house of mourning, the Hebrew word used here is, I can't even pronounce it, Bet Avil, B-A-T-A, Bet B-E-V-E-L, Bethel. Once occurs this one time, only occurred this one time in the Bible, although similar phrases appear in Jerusalem. And I was not focusing right this morning for some reason. And said many people evolved thinking that death refers to the refuse to face refers to death and refuse to face it. And that is not quite what Solomon is trying to lead us to. He said, we'll lay it to your heart, and people should live in the manner that recognize their mortality. And that's what he's trying to get us to see. When he said we need to recognize that we're mortal, that we're not going to live forever. Even back in the day when God was allowing people to live 900 years, live 660 years, it all came to an end. And the world we live in today, bullets can stop you.
When Methuselah 1,000 years old, who's that was 1,000?
I don't think nobody lived 1,000 years. I think the most I've read was 960 years. And that was Methuselah. I think it was. I have to look it up, and I don't remember reading anybody lived 1,000.
Said that way, almost 1,000.
But it was the idea that that there was mortal, still was mortality. And we have to understand the mortality of it. And this is why he writes in chapter verse 2, it is better to go to a house of mourning than to go to a house of feasting. For that is the end of all men, and the living will lay it to his heart. And people go mourn for someone only for a short time. Eventually they go on living. But you go to some place that's having a feast or party. Party may start at 9 at night and end at 2 in the morning. And it's over. It's only for that short period of time. Feasting is only for a short period. But your mortality is forever. And we have to understand that we're not here forever. And to enjoy what God has given us to enjoy, the time we have to enjoy it. Like my eyes, the eyes are good. Yeah, Bron Trey put those things back on yesterday because I couldn't see. His eyes are better than mine, so I let him put them back on. So he lays this out to us and he said, and the living will lie it at his heart. You know, we just apply things. The living will apply things to their heart. I'm seeing my focusing on my, and that's referring, like I'm focusing on my notes. Okay. And well, he's saying that he will lie in that heart. People should live in a manner that recognizes there is a mortality rate. Is when he said it aligned when he writes the last part of this, say, lie it at their hearts. And with the lid, you should understand that there's a mortality. That understand your mortality, and that you should live in a manner that recognizes that you are mortal. The involved fact of humanity has been emphasized throughout the book of this book. He tells us in chapter 2, verse 14, that the wise person has his eyes in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. And yet I perceive that the same event happens to them all. And he's talking about death, where he puts it. And then he says the same thing again in chapter 3, 19. He said, "For what happens to the children of man, and what happens to the beast is the same. As one dies, so dies the other. They all have the same breath, and man has no advantage over the beast. All is vanity." And when he put the last part, and then he said, "And the living will lay it to his heart." And he's talking about understanding and living according to the idea that you are mortal, not that you're not immortal. And because I used to listen to young men when I was back in these young men when I was trying to work with a lot of these young men when I was able to get out in the street, and they would say, "I ain't afraid to die." And that's the idea of not understanding your mortality. Fortunately, some of them they're getting to the point now where they understand the mortality, they understand the end, because a lot of them have went to their brothers and their close friends' funerals, and they find out the ones that said that "I'm not afraid of dying" died, and that they're no more. So we have to live according to the ideas what Solomon is telling us here. The understanding that we are all mortal, and we live according to our mortality. And verse 3 said, and 3 says, "Sorrow is better than laughter. For by the sadness of the contrary, the heart is made better." And I looked at this and I thought about this when he said sorrow is better than laughter. And I thought about several people that I know that lost someone close to them, and the way they covered their sorrow is by laughing. And they carried that. And my brother, I had to get him to go through it, and he still worked his way through it. But people cover the sorrow with laughter, but the sorrow, unless the sorrow or that emotion come out. So we kind of cover one emotion with another. And what Solomon is saying here, we need to not try to cover one emotion with the other until that mourning, until that sorrow comes out. The laughter cannot be for real, and then you cannot benefit from that. So he's letting us know that if you're mourning, or if you're or suffering with something, or loss, or anything that's close to you, let it out. And anger, let it out. And it's like people carry around grudges, and they get in your face, and they get in your face and they laugh with you, and they have something that they have something they're holding against you. Some of them keep bringing it out. They're laughing, and they're constantly builds up. And I think that's why we have a lot of family crime. Especially, I'm going to say it with white folks, because most black people I know, if you done did something to them, they're going to come and tell you. They get it out, and then eventually, after they got it out, you're friends again, because all that you're able to correct that because most of the time it's a misunderstanding. So if you get it out, then you can correct that misunderstanding, or you misunderstood what somebody said. Because a lot of times people misunderstood, or they take something out of context. But if you hold it in, you never find out whether or not was the facts, what was right about it. What are the facts? You keep carrying it, you keep carrying it, you keep carrying it. So here, Solomon is saying, is letting us know, sorrow is better than laughter. In other words, it's better to bring it out. For by sadness of the contrary, continent, the contentment, the heart is made better. Of the contrary, I can't get pronounce that word right. But anyway, he's saying that it's better. So he's trying to let us know that it's better for us to bring out all these things instead of stockpiling them, right? I like to put it. You just keep putting it there, bending it back, putting it back, putting it back. You stockpile it and you keep putting it up there, and then all of a sudden, it's just like putting a lot of pressure on the dam. Eventually, the dam breaks because it's carrying too much. It has too much pressure on it. So he said it's better to bring it out instead of holding it in and telling us that we should. Or it should. So it's better to bring it out. The heart is made better when we release it, release the pressure. Okay. All right, so we got a few more minutes. So we understand where he's leading us to down this path. And he gets us to, and he's still talking about the heart. And he said in 3, and he started talking about that in 2. Then he goes to the better laughter, and then the heart is made better. Then in 4, he takes the goal, still dealing with the heart. He said the heart of the wise is in the house of mourning. The heart of the wise, the heart is the heart of the reference of the essence of the character of a person, not just the center of emotion. The heart, that old saying, you got heartbroken when somebody leaves. When people leaning on, and it all comes down to an emotion. It's an emotional feeling. When a breakup or somebody dies, you're broken hearted, and it's emotion. That's why the reference is heart here, because we know as we go into certain scripture that the heart is referring to the mind, and heart broken, you're dealing with the heart. And it's an emotion. The emotion is what we act on sometimes instead of thinking. And I do believe what he's referring here also is the way we think when he's talking about the heart. We allow our emotions to carry us and to affect us in the way we do things. He said the heart is the heart of a wise, of the wise heart, a wise person, a wise thinking. Don't always react, don't always act on emotion. Sometimes things happen, instead of reacting, we just think. Take a moment to think about it. We'll see that it's not as bad or it's not as may not be what we think it is. In 1 Samuel 16:7, it says, "But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature, because I have injected him. For the Lord sees not the man, sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outer appearance, but God looks on his heart." So the way you think, the way you are, and understanding that the heart is what's going to affect your action. See, many people avoid thinking about death or thinking about things and refuse to face it. And in the end, reluctantly, I don't know if I'm seeing my notes, or I can't see, I can't make out my notes. But it reminds us that we have to be reminded, it reminds us that there is still time for change and time to examine our direction. And he said, the wise heart, the heart of the wise heart is the wise heart. And it tells us that all sorrow is better than laughter for, and verse 4, the heart of a wise is better, wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of the fool is in the house of myth.
Minds of pleasure, while the minds of fools is in the house of pleasure.
Yeah, it also allows them myths. Yes, sir. All right. I would plan on doing that. I had planned on doing that anyway. Oh, all right. All right. All right. And yeah, you said what? Pleasure?
Yeah. I can read the whole thing. The mind of the wise is in the house of mourning, while the mind of fools is in the house of pleasure.
Yeah. And then mine said myth, which is a mythology or something that you think is not real. A myth is not real, not necessarily real, something that you think is real.
Raymond?
Huh?
Raymond?
Yep. So, but he said the heart of the wise is in the house of mourning. When you're mourning, if you at a funeral among people that are mourning, it's a reality. They're crying or mourning because they are facing a reality that someone that they cared about is gone. So it's based, but when he said the house of the fool is in the house of a myth, and they're not facing a reality of things. And a lot of people today walk around, because I look at what's going on, and I looked at all these people. Can't remember how many thousand people that this year are at the convention this convention in Philadelphia for the Republican convention. And all these people, they were talking, they were sitting there getting people cheering about people. People said, these are myths. This is something that they want. They were talking about things that they want to do to make it. But a lot of the stuff they're saying is not going to be reality. Because too many people are not going to allow them to do the things they want to do. They're talking about they're going to come in, and when Trump gets in office, they're going to deport all these Mexicans that've been here for years, kids that were born here and went to school here, that have served in the military. They're going to deport them. That's a myth. they're not going to be able to do that.
Some of the ones that's supporting him, Mexican.
Huh?
Mexicans, mostly the one that's supporting him.
No, I don't know about that, but I know it's a myth
Yeah.
to say that we're not living. We have gotten to the point in this country and in certain, we're not living among reality. And there's a lot of things going on that have been taught in the church. But we have to get to the point where we face reality. And he's comparing mourning, a house of mourning, to the idea that we should face reality. This is real. I can't read all my notes, so I have to take it. I don't know why. What's wrong with my glasses this morning? I'm looking. I cleaned them. They're just not. My eyes just not focusing. He said because everyone will eventually die. It makes sense to plan ahead and experience God's mercy rather than his justice. That was the last part of that one, my note. And I did get that. So he said, shouldn't be living in a mythology. You know, and I think about that, and I think, Lord, when I think about myths, I think about mythology. When you're talking about, they're talking about Zeus, and they start dragons, and they have these mythology movies that we watch. That you look at sorcerers and sorcery, and how, and they take the story of the king and round table, and the Merlin, and Merlin. That is, yeah. This is mythology, and so Solomon said, there's a fool who lives in that realm. We can watch those movies, but we haven't watched the movies and understand it. It's not real. But a fool will live in that way of thinking. And we're going to finish up with this last verse, and then we'll close it out. And that's verse 5 says, "It is better to hear the rebuke of the wise than for a man to hear the songs of a fool." And, we were talking about that the last couple of days, Jacobs and I, on our broadcast on Thursday. Probably we were talking about people talking about praising themselves, saying that striving for perfection, or saying that I am perfect. And the Bible don't teach that's anything about being perfect. And I brought out, I think, four different verses in 4 different books where the Bible teaches that we're not perfect, that we're striving to be perfect. And here Solomon said it's better, because once you feel like you're perfect, you won't take correction. People that feel like they know everything, you cannot correct it because they won't take correction. People that's open, that don't believe that they're perfect, is open for correction. And I use one analogy as some women that these beauty contests, and they feel like they're a perfect woman. We're not facing reality, and one day they're going to get old, and that what they call beauty is gone. Or the woman is running around looking for the perfect man, or the man is running around looking for the perfect woman. And you ask, well, how come you never got married? I couldn't ever find the right woman. I couldn't ever find the right man. Because you're looking for somebody who was perfect, or you're trying to find somebody to make them perfect. So that's why. So here, when he's saying it's better to hear the rebuke, and it's because you're not considering yourself higher than better than anybody else. it's better to hear. I get on you all the time. Because you don't, I try to get you to listen with an understanding that it's better to hear what's being said. And if I get on your case, it's not because I don't love you, and I get on you because I do love you. If I didn't love you, I wouldn't say anything to you. See, when you accept correction, you understand the person that's correcting you is doing it because they care about you. And this is what Solomon is letting us know, because he said it's better to hear a rebuke of the wise than the man that to hear the songs of fools. Because there are people out there who sing your praise, how good you are, how well you do things. I know in times when I look to people, certain people out there, I bring a message. And I look at them, not to give me praise, but to say, show me where I went wrong. Because Reverend Williams, bless his heart, when he was here, he would not correct me openly, but he would correct me silently. But he was willing to correct me and change me. My mother was the same way. So, but be leery of people that's always telling you that you're right. Don't always listen to people that tell you that you're doing good. Because sometimes people tell you that how good you are, and you know you're not. But they'll make you think you're doing good, and then all of a sudden you start believing it. So Solomon is trying to get us to see. He said the rebuke of the wise a form of instruction. Wisdom literally praises the person who accepts correction. A wise person knows when to accept correction. All right, Rondre. So this is what he is trying to get us to see and understand. And I said money talks, and it can count, and it can count those who would otherwise judge fairly. We here should, I think about this. We're going to stop here very seldom and pick it up next week. The Lord said the same. I wonder why people follow a man like Trump. And most of the time, and I started more I listened to the folks, I started realizing that they're out for what they can get. Money talks. Money talks. When I looked at him going into this black church, and this black pastor sitting up there, talking about he coming in to help the black people. And I realized, and I started finding out how much money that his campaign gave to the church in order for him to be there. And then they started showing who was in the church for this meeting. And they were directly talking about you black people, and the people coming in to take your black jobs. And most of the people, they were white. There were very few black people.
In a black church.
Huh?
In a black church.
In a black church.
Black folks didn't want to be there with Trump coming in. So
no, I know, but the black pastor there decided he was going to do it. And
he wasn't going to do it.
He would do it. That's why he
did it for the money.
He got did it for the money.
But I'm saying the black members, they don't want to be there with Trump, so you let the white folks come in.
Curious about how many of them would question his intentions and bring it forth. And see, this is the thing we have to understand in the church today. We're we have gotten to the point where we're putting money ahead of God. And that's one of the things that we're going to go in. And this is what Solomon is telling us. He said, for as the cracking of the thorns under the pot, so is the laughter of a fool is also this also is vanity. He said, fool it's a party. I'm gonna leave it there because if I can go a little further with that, but we'll pick this up at verse 6 and 7 next week. The Lord said the same. No, we got started. We got to cut into things, but I thank God for you today, and hopefully, those who can and will be with us next week, be with us later on today. I have posted on the address on both my Facebook pages, and those who are listening, join us this afternoon at 2 o'clock.